At sea on a dark and stormy night, or at high noon in high water, anyone who's ever gone sailing has wished for a ship like this. An amazing new species of watercraft that stays rock steady even in a violent storm. The technology is called SWATH, and it's the radical idea at the bottom of this super ship, the incredible scientific research vessel, Kilo Moana. Kilo Moana is one of the world's most advanced scientific research ships. Built in 2002, she's 57 meters long and half of that distance in width. She's a floating laboratory and a stable workbench for experiments that are probing the future of our oceans, our climate, and our own survival. In the Hawaiian language, Kilo Moana means one who looks for understanding of the deep sea. Over the course of 1 year, 200 scientists, 30 at a time, will spend 300 days mapping the seafloor, collecting data on sea life, concentrations of living organisms, salinity, sediments, and currents. Searching for solutions to a crisis that affects everyone on our endangered Earth. Everything about the Kilo Moana has been designed with scientific research as the top priority. From its ability to take aboard modular laboratories to the 27-meter wide deployment platform or fantail at the stern. Where sample bottles and sediment traps are released and retrieved. Her mission? To investigate what is happening to the world's climate and why. Our increasingly wild weather is big news and a big worry that global climate patterns are being seriously and permanently altered by human pollution. Built for the United States Navy, Kilo Moana is chartered to the University of Hawaii's School of Ocean and Earth Sciences and Technology, or SOEST.
The reasons we study things in science are that we want to understand how the world works. What makes the weather change on cycles? One must never think that the scientists don't have at the back of their mind that the problem that they're addressing is so fundamentally important to humanity that the solution of it will mean a great deal.
At the heart of the global weather system is the interplay of the oceans and the atmosphere, a delicate ballet of warm and wet and cool and dry. Just a slight variation in the water temperature in the Pacific can raise havoc with local weather from Canada to Chile. But no one completely understands how the oceans and air interact. Today, as it glides out of Honolulu Harbor, the SWATH ship Kilo Moana is en route to probe this mystery. But in order to study rough weather, the people on board, most of them land-based scientists, will find themselves exposed to the motion of the ocean for days at a time. And they'll have to face up to a challenge that ocean travelers have had to face for thousands of years, right up to modern times: severe seasickness. A century ago, as the age of sail was segueing into the age of steam, millions of seamen, travelers, and immigrants found themselves at the mercy of the ocean's moods.
monohulls, in those days probably sailing ships or early steam-driven ships, were basically like a cork in the ocean, and you're like a human milkshake traveling on them.
For thousands of years, nearly every ocean-going vessel, be it sailboat, steamer, or battleship, has been a monohull. A single large frame at the mercy of the rolling and pitching of the waves. And when the ocean gets angry, a monohull feels the pain. The energy of the churning surface is transferred to the ship through the waterplane area, the part of the hull that is in direct contact with the waves. When the water surges and slides, the ship goes with it. The result can be violent seasickness, incapacitating the crew, and putting the ship at risk. In spite of what we think we see looking out on the water, waves do not carry water from one place to another. Like a crowd at a sports arena doing a wave, the water, like the people, does not move forward. It remains in place. The closer to the surface, the more movement and energy. And this is where a monohulled ship meets the waterplane area. But there is a vessel that is not affected by the waterplane area because it cruises far below it, the submarine. It may be claustrophobic, but it doesn't get tossed about by surface action. And it was the smooth motion of the submarine that inspired the invention of SWATH, S-W-A-T-H, Small Waterplane Area Twin Hull. A concept that would lead one man to risk his reputation and stake his fortune on a radical new technology. SWATH technology, the stabilizing feature at the heart of the research vessel Moana, was first envisioned by a Canadian inventor from the seagoing province of Nova Scotia, Frederick G. Creed. He was born in 1871, and by age 14, Frederick Creed was working in the telegraph office of Western Union. Before he was 30, he had invented a machine that turned the dots and dashes of Morse code into printed text that anybody could read.
Creed obviously had the ability to take very difficult problems and break them down into very simple components and work on those. And the development of the teleprinter, I think, is an example of that.
It's all in black and white, hurtling millions of words across thousands of miles automatically.
That brilliant invention was the forerunner of the millions of telex and teletype machines that linked the world until the coming of the internet. But Frederick Creed had even bigger dreams. He had sailed between North America, Britain, and South America enough times to understand how sickeningly unpleasant a rough crossing could be. And so, in 1930, he gave up his million-dollar telegraphy business and started sketching the designs for a revolutionary new kind of supership that wouldn't be flustered by a fierce storm at sea.
Basically, around the end of the First War, he proposed using a SWATH-type concept, which he called a sea drone, to maintain cables in mid-Atlantic. And of course, ship motion would be a major problem when you're trying to put cables in rough water, especially in mid-Atlantic. He seemed to understand that you could decouple if you want, the energy of the sea that it imparts on a ship and reduced emotions.
Creed knew that it was the waterplane area, the part of the ship actually coming in contact with the waves, that made ships pitch and roll so violently. So his radical new concept called for a small waterplane area twin hull, what is now called swath, supported by twin submarine hulls with separate propellers. Creed calculated that if the hulls were ballasted with seawater to keep them well below the surface action of the waves, a swath ship would be almost impervious to pitching and rolling. Frederick Creed invested nearly every penny he had in the project. He spent years trying to interest the British and American navies in building a fleet of swath aircraft carriers, stable platforms for warplane takeoffs and landings. But both countries turned him down. Creed died in 1957, almost broke. He never got to sail on the swath ship of his dreams.
And he seemed to be able, just like Bell, to see right through these things and to come up with a solution.
In the mid-70s, the U.S. Navy finally gave swath a true test. It built a 27-meter prototype, Kai Molino, but the project was dropped. California millionaire Leonard Friesman was so taken with swath technology, he built the Suavelino as a private yacht. On spec, he built a second ship that would eventually be sold to the Canadian government and named the Frederick G. Creed, an 80-ton swath ship used by the Canadian Hydrographic Service for sonar ocean mapping. Today, the Creed is in dry dock in Halifax for routine maintenance, presenting an opportunity to see what's usually invisible under the waterline. The twin submarine hulls that make it and all swath watercraft so special. The submerged pontoons are the critical difference between a swath vessel and something like a twin-hulled catamaran. Cats skim across the tops of the waves. And hydrofoils, while they may be fast, the rougher the sea state, the worse the ride, as the wings absorb all the wave energy and all the punishment. In sea states 4, 5, and 6, when waves can reach more than 7 meters in height, nothing can perform like a swath.
What we owe to Frederick Creed is the fact that he demonstrated that there was a hull form that would significantly improve ship motions. The Moana hull, it really hasn't advanced much over 6,000 years.
When the Frederick G. Creed arrived in Canada, she had her doubters. On December 29, 1989, two vessels met off St. John's Harbor, Newfoundland. The Creed at 80 tons and the 250-ton fisheries patrol vessel Louisburg. In Sea State 5, with 6-meter swells, it was a real test of swath stability.
There was a full gale on the 29th of December 1989, and if you know St. John's Harbor, it's not a very big harbor. You get 1 meter outside and the whole world came to an end. Got to about 18-foot waves and 45-knot winds.
That's Louisburg on the left, bouncing like a cork, and Creed on the right, rock steady. Undeniable proof that swath works.
We pushed that ship that day, in my opinion, to its limit and got away with it.
Even in the toughest sea states, while the monohull takes a real pounding, the swath ship rides so smoothly that the glass of water on the windowsill doesn't spill a drop. One trip on a swath ship makes sailing on a monohull look very unappetizing. But there's a lot more than comfort at stake in the smooth new world of swath. Swath technology is making it possible for Kilo Moana, with her complement of 20 seasick-free scientists, to probe the complex interaction of the ocean and the atmosphere, to help us understand what's happening to our crazy climate, perhaps to guide us as we attempt to avoid an even more disastrous future. It's not uncommon for a monohull to spend days steaming to the location of a mid-ocean research project only to be prevented from doing any science at all because of heavy seas. But the Kilo Moana's swath design changes everything.
Scientists get seasick like everybody else, and so a swath ship actually is an attractive alternative to the monohull that bounces around in the way that it does. But as importantly, or more importantly, the swath ships enable people to make measurements at sea in something called sea state 6, which means big, big waves.
Hidden away nearly 8 feet below the surface are the twin submarine hulls that make this ship so stable, maneuverable, and unique. And because the twin propellers are so far apart, they, in conjunction with the forward thruster, will easily pivot the ship within her own length, making her a dream to maneuver in tight quarters, even in a strong crosswind.
The physical makeup of the swath design, you have parts of the hull that aren't really known to most mariners. You have the haunch section, you have the strut section, and then you have the lower hull. And it's in this very narrow strut section of the hull where most of your waves will pass through. And because it is so narrow, you have less action. You ride through and over the waves as opposed to going through with so much wetted surface.
Captain Drury is describing the Kilo Moana's most distinctive signature, that open space under the body of the ship between the struts. On a monohull, that's where the keel takes a pounding, absorbing the energy contained in every wave, ripple, and bump. But a swath ship has no keel, so the fury of the ocean dissipates into thin air. Even when the waves are coming from the side of the ship, a condition that mariners call a beam sea, a swath vessel still rides smoothly without rolling like a monohull. In a beam sea, most of the wave energy is vertical, not horizontal, a force pushing up, rolling a conventional hull back and forth. But that energy is released into the open space between a swath ship's twin hulls, and the submarine pontoons remain well below that vertical wave action. Veteran officer Paul Unterweiser enjoys that kind of stability on the bridge, where some of the most sophisticated navigation and guidance systems in the world keep Kilo Moana on station, even in sea states that would send an ordinary monohull running for shore.
This is our engineering display. Every valve, every engine, every motor, every pump can be displayed on this display. Right now we're displaying what the overall propulsion plan is. We're using 2 diesel generators to produce electricity for 2 electric motors that drive the props. This is our alarm displays for propulsions. We have 2 radars, what they call a 10 centimeter and a 3 centimeter. I use one for long distance, the other for close-in work. This is the wheel or the helm. And we have an autopilot, and we have a dynamic positioning system, which when operating keeps us on station, heading where we want to be. And then this is our chart mapping system. We're able to keep track of our position within about 50 yards.
On the main deck, 4 powerful diesel engines are positioned in 2 generator rooms, one on each side of the ship. Below the engines in the twin submarine hulls are 1.5 megawatt Westinghouse electric motors, powering twin screw propellers. At full power, the ship has a cruising speed of 15 knots, or close to 30 kilometers an hour, and a range approaching 10,000 nautical miles. On this voyage, the destination is Aloha Station, 108 kilometers northwest of Oahu, where the World Surfing Championship has just been called off because the waves are too high. The University of Hawaii has been studying this slice of the North Pacific for more than 14 years, weather permitting.
On the last research vessel that the University of Hawaii had, a good vessel, she would just have been rolling right, like people would have been holding on, just trying to hold on, and wouldn't have been able to do much on deck.
But now, with the swath ship Kilo Moana, sea conditions have been taken out of the equation. Satellite tracking and a high-tech propulsion system can keep the ship on track within a range of just a few yards. While scientists try to predict the consequences of the global climate change that is being created by forces far out at sea.
Well, we're trying to get a better handle on how the Earth's climate system is changing over longer periods of time and oscillating on year-to-year timescales. And we think that we'll be able to help predict those changes and help you adapt to them.
The work will go on long after dark. But while the Kilo Moana probes the secrets of the sea, dozens of other amazing swath vessels are working their own wonders. Swath technology is brilliantly effective to sail, but it's expensive and complex to engineer. Today, about 50 swath vessels are in active service in a wide variety of roles. You can glide from Florida to the Bahamas aboard the luxurious swath ferry Cloud 10. And the Radisson Diamond offers 5-star cruising with swath stability. But global security is the job of Lockheed Martin's deadly new Sea Slice, a swath platform that could become the Navy's ultimate killing machine. Among the many benefits that come from swath technology, one of the most amazing is the advantage it provides to hydrographers, the men and women who map the unseen floors of the world's great oceans.
So pound it in the foxtrot, right?
Okay, Roger, I got you guys.
In Canada, the Frederick G. Creed is mapping the contours of East Coast harbors and the offshore petroleum grounds. Helping geologists find the hidden riches of the underwater world. Swath stability is a miracle in itself, but being able to install the sonar probes well below the waterline is another huge advantage.
In a monohull, the transducer will tend to come out of the water, or you get air, water. With a swath, they'll always be in the water, as a matter of fact, no matter what the sea state. And so you get excellent results. You get a lot more of it, a lot faster. So you can cover a very large area very quickly, very accurately.
But while swath is a godsend to oceanographers and marine biologists, it makes waves in dozens of other roles as well. Radisson Diamond is the only luxury cruise ship in the world using the revolutionary swath technology. Its twin-hull design allows the Diamond to glide effortlessly above the waves as 350 guests enjoy 5-star comfort and silky, stylish sailing.
Radisson Diamond is a phenomenal swath, actually. She's 20,000 tons, and she looks very nice. Obviously can handle any kind of sea conditions comfortably for their passengers. And another advantage she has is the fact that in cruise ships, they love to have windows. People pay for that, so they can see the ocean, etc., and see it comfortably. This ship has a lot of windows.
The Swath Ferry Cloud 10 races at 28 knots between Florida and the Bahamas through the chop and swells of the subtropical Atlantic, stylish and smooth. And this 25-meter Swacat, the Necton Pilot, is built for live aboard scuba diving trips to the teeming reefs and keys of Belize. But there's another job for Swath, and it's not about scuba or lavish buffets. It's all about war. For 4 decades, Cold Warriors rolled and bounced across the heaving oceans at only 3 knots in monohull buckets, trying to monitor and track enemy communications on voyages that lasted a month at a time. These U.S. Navy swath ships make that ordeal of listening in on the world a pleasure. But the more aggressive warrior-class swaths are not about comfort. They are deadly ships, like the ominous U.S. Navy Sea Shadow. A swath vessel 50 meters long and 20 meters wide. It combines stability and speed with stealth technology. Nearly invisible to radar and heat-seeking scanners. Unseen by the enemy until it's much too late.
The horizon, as we say, is usually only max 12, 15 miles that you can normally see from any kind of a ship to the horizon, and then the Earth drops off because it's round. So if you can imagine this thing coming over the horizon at any kind of speed, in any kind of a sea state, it would be on top of you before you knew it. Or, contrary, it would be out there and you wouldn't know it.
The U.S. Navy is looking at SWATH as the launch platform for the most deadly missiles and guns in its high-tech arsenal. Sea Slice, a prototype of what the next generation of warships could look like. Like all SWATH ships, it slices through the waves on a pair of submarine hulls with independent propulsion systems. But unlike all the others, Sea Slice is built for killing, not cruising.
It's an experimental SWATH built by Lockheed out of California because they sell a lot of weapon systems, and this platform, because of its stability, there's military applications.
Its guns can fire 1,000 rounds a minute. And these amazing missiles can circle a target for an hour before detonating, giving the enemy time to choose surrender or destruction. The Navy calls them street fighters, fast, stable, small combatants. Future street fighters will have a range of 4,000 nautical miles and speeds of 50 to 60 knots, making them the fastest, stealthiest, most stable warships in history. But while Sea Slice is taking out the bad guys, Moana is hard at work in the Pacific, investigating the secrets of the sea and sounding a global warning about global warming. Two o'clock in the morning, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, 108 kilometers from the Hawaiian Islands, hovering 4,800 meters above the sea floor, scientists aboard the research ship Moana deploy a beacon and rosette of sediment traps. The ship's unique SWATH stability allows it to remain virtually motionless, no matter how choppy the conditions. With separate propellers in each of its two submarine hulls, and with a bow thruster able to compensate automatically for lateral forces, Moana is a scientist's dreamboat. Tonight, these marine biologists are searching for microscopic life forms whose abundance or scarcity will provide vital clues to the health of the ocean in the age of global climate change.
We send particle interceptor traps down to about 150 and 165 meters. We had the gray crosses with the orange and clear tubes. That's actually the business end of the trap. The stuff that stays on the surface is just so that it floats and so we can find it.
It's just one of the many projects on this 5-day voyage to Aloha Station. Dozens of experiments are underway around the clock. Anne Gassick, who did her PhD at the University of Montpellier, is looking into the concentration of peroxide in the water at the surface of the ocean. This will reveal how much mixing is taking place between the surface water and the deeper waters. When the scientists aren't in their labs, they can catch up on their laundry or write an email home. And they always know the exact position of the ship, because their cabins and their labs are connected to the ship's global positioning satellite navigation system. It's a far cry from the experience of early Pacific explorers. 230 years ago, Captain James Cook sailed these same waters, beginning the exploration of the Pacific that the super-stable swath ship Moana continues to this day. Cook mapped the channels and canyons of the ocean floor by dropping a weighted line marked off in fathoms. Today, Moana is assigned to the same task, with a lot more high-tech tools at its disposal.
We can do now much more rapidly because of GPS and the ability to swath map large areas very rapidly. We can make maps that are at that resolution with much fewer people and a lot quicker. But certainly what Cook did a long time ago, in some places it's still as good as it gets.
Somewhere below, huge deposits of precious metals and minerals may be waiting to be discovered. To find them, today's high-tech prospectors need to know the contours and composition of the ocean floor, kilometer by kilometer and meter by meter. The deepwater sonar system has sound transducers mounted under the port hull, broadcasting 191 separate sonar beams that bounce off seafloor surfaces and return. These wide-range soundings fan out across a 20-kilometer slice of the ocean bottom, 10 kilometers on either side. At the same time, the side-scan system fills in the gaps and generates maps with exquisite detail. The entire operation is guided by global positioning satellites. Aboard the swath ship Moana, we've come a long way from Captain Cook's lead weights and line. The electronic data that sonar mapping provides is a monumental advance in our knowledge of the ocean floor. This spectacular footage is just one example of what sonar mapping can produce. As the Moana hovers at Aloha Station, there is one more in a series of vital experiments to perform. The lowering of a carousel of sampling tubes, known as a CTD cage, to measure conductivity, temperature, and depth.
This is the lab. The lab is ready anytime.
Okay, we're on.
This zone of the North Pacific is a major crossroads of cold and warm water currents, whose journeys begin as far away as Japan and Antarctica. Understanding these flows and how they affect our local weather all across North America is the key to predicting potentially devastating effects of global climate change.
This next cast is going to go from the surface down to the bottom at about 4,800 meters, and it's going to take about 4 hours round trip. And during that time, we're going to profile the water column for temperature, conductivity, dissolved oxygen, and we turn temperature, pressure, and conductivity into salinity, which is what we're primarily interested in.
Lab Roger, please go 30 meters. I mean, the first 100 meters. Target depth is 1020 decibars.
Fernando Santiago Mandujano may be the chief scientist on this mission, but he still has to work the overnight shift.
Lab Roger, stand by, please.
As the cage descends into the dark Pacific, it's already sending back data to his laptop.
One way to do it is we do several casts in different parts of the Pacific Ocean, and we see how the characteristics of this water are changing. This salinity minimum that we're going to see here has been tracked back to the north of Japan.
This data tracks currents and proves ocean systems are changing. which will explain changes in the weather where you're living.
There, I just fire a bottle.
The CTD cage will start to shoot its collecting tubes when the probe reaches a depth of 4,800 meters, more than 5 kilometers down. One keystroke at the surface triggers the top and bottom of each tube to snap shut, trapping a perfect sample of the water and whatever's in it. The cage rises a few more meters and another tube is closed. The deployment and collection goes on all night and into the morning. Aboard Kilo Moana, science outranks sleep. Because the research is important, the ship is unique, and the stakes are enormous. If you're a deep ocean scientist, life at sea doesn't get any better than this.
Feed them well, that's all they have to look forward to. Right now I'm sorting between well done, medium rare, and rare. Watch out, the chief mate's throwing utensils again.
It's all thanks to Swath and Frederick George Creed, the Canadian who changed the way that scientists sail the ocean, but who never got to sail this way himself. One man's dream started the greatest revolution in ship design in 6,000 years, the dream of Swath. Super stable ships supported on a pair of submarine hulls that slice through the water far below the churning and sickening action of the surface waves. So, why has this remarkable Swath technology not been widely accepted? Well, mariners, believe it or not, are a conservative lot. The monohull has evolved over 6,000 years, and the Swath has only been sailing for 30. With some 50 Swaths in service worldwide, and another 30 in the planning stages for research work alone, more and more people are becoming believers.
There's a lot of excitement having a Swath ship in the fleet. People are just starting to experience the advantages of this type of vessel. Ships are our most important access to sea. Our students and our researchers need to get out there to understand what's going on.
Having done it and having made a success of it, I'm convinced that this is probably the general design for research vessels of the future.
We can take more people, they're more comfortable, they want to go to sea, they want to go back to sea. And this ship will help us make that happen.
Once you've been on a Swath vessel, it's very difficult to go back to a monohull because the ride is so nice.
More than 70 years ago, Frederick Creed gave up $1 million business and devoted his life to designing an entirely new way to sail. His quest left him in poverty, but it's just beginning to enrich thousands of sailors around the world. As the first generation of Swath ship gives way to a new family of futuristic vessels, a new wave of steadiness and stability, the secret behind tomorrow's smoothest super ships.
Once people ride on this, they're never going to want to ride on a monohull again.